Welcome, everyone, to Monitoring Medical Device Trials. This is an introduction to monitoring for medical devices. I am Gary Freeman, and I have over 30 years' experience in the pharmaceutical and medical device industry. Medical devices, as you may know, became regulated much later than drugs, but the act of monitoring the clinical study is very similar and often follows issues that are learned from the drug industry. If any of you have worked in the drug industry before and are watching warning letters or FDA presentations that are given for drugs, we're finding the very same types of deficiencies coming through in devices. It's all about people, and the people make mistakes. Good clinical practice is all people-oriented. So it makes sense that many of the deficiencies that we found over the years with drugs are inherent in device studies as well. So we need to work on those and learn from past experience and do a better job. Most of the guidance documents that have been issued by the FDA cover drug and device regulations together, and most of them are currently, for the last 5 years or so, have affected mostly the investigator and the investigator responsibilities. Now, some sponsors feel that that means that they don't have to deal with this. That's not correct at all. Inadequate monitoring often leads the investigator to be non-compliant. So it's very important that we pay attention to the investigator responsibilities, not that we do them as monitors, but that we know what they are liable for and try to help them to keep them out of trouble. And so we need to monitor our studies better so that we have better compliance to the regulations. We'll look at some of the basic principles then that are embraced by monitoring in this course today. So let's take a look at some of our learning objectives then that we will be covering. The first one is that we will describe the regulatory purpose of monitoring the device study. Why do we do this? It's costly. It's time. It's travel. Why bother? If we hire professional folks to do this, wouldn't they be able to figure it all out? Not really. We're going to define the basic types of monitoring visits. What kind of work do we do when we do monitor our study? And how do we document what we did? The QA adage is, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So we need to be very, very careful to document everything we do and things that we don't do with a plan as to when we will be doing them. This is called site management. How do we manage our sites as monitors, as sponsors, as CROs? If we hire a CRO to monitor our study, the sponsor is still ultimately responsible for everything they've done. So we need to have sign-offs on our monitoring visit reports by the sponsor then to show that they truly have oversight. They know what's going on at their sites. They're protecting the patients. They know that the data will have quality to it when it's presented to them on the case report form. We have supporting evidence in source records. This will be the role and responsibility primarily of the CRA or the monitor for the varying types of visits that they're making. A lot of our study work obviously is now being done outside of the site. They're not all going to be doing just the job at the site location. There's so many centralized systems that we can do a lot of our work without even being at the site. So we'll talk a bit about that as well and why we still do need to go to the site. We'll talk about the meaning of protocol and regulatory or GCP compliance. That is the purpose for monitoring, to keep the investigator compliant to the regulations. We'll then recognize the rationale behind adequate documentation again of our monitoring by identifying the issues. That's called site management. Are we working with them to correct the situations when they do fall awry? Do we work with them to complete preventive action? And I say complete preventive action because we need to document that it was really effective. Oftentimes the monitor just leaves it hanging, and the regulators say that we don't follow an issue to completion. I don't believe that's true. I think it's more that we don't document that we followed it through completion. Many monitors think if they don't mention an issue again, it went away. It's obvious there's no problem anymore. And that's not really the case. We need to document that we did follow it through. If we have an example of an informed consent form issue and it goes away, we want to highlight that in our next monitoring visit report, that the appropriate individuals have been retrained, that perhaps there's an SOP in place. that now, having inspected the next 3 or 4 patient informed consent forms, there is no issue. They're completed appropriately. If we don't document that, it's not implied that the issue just went away. It might be we forgot about it. And that would be the route that the FDA or other regulatory agencies might take. So we need to be sure to document everything we've done and completed.